Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We would also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. On today's episode, Nicole Seaward joins me to discuss her LinkedIn course, Autism in the Workplace, and projects outside of work that bring her joy. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Nicole, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
And I wanted to start by learning about your story. Where does your story in the autistic community begin?
Great question. I would say I've always been interested in different types of cognition from just being interested in the brain in general. And then I went through a period of time in my life where it's probably very similar to what people call autistic burnout. And I lost the ability to do a lot of really basic tasks that I had had no problem doing before. Like living independently, I could feed myself, I could do everything. And then all of a sudden, I went through this year and a half period where that was not the case. And during that time, I started to see some professionals and was diagnosed as autistic. And it really was a great experience for me because it was like the key that unlocked all of the doors that I couldn't access or open before. And it helped me reframe my personal experiences and forgive myself for a lot of stuff that I had gone through in the past as I viewed it through a lens of being autistic. And I started to appreciate my unique differences. And so I just started to try and meet as many people like me as I could, or, what kind of businesses or companies might be supporting adults, because I realized very quickly that there wasn't a lot of support.
You are a full time consultant for Grit and Flow. And from what I understand, this has been your longest place of employment with one organization. What about Grit and Flow has been helpful to you so you can do the job to the best of your ability, where some of your places of previous employment, maybe their culture might have fallen short?
Yeah, so it's both my work environment and the work that I do that has kept me at Grit and Flow for so long. Grit and Flow is the first time I've had the opportunity to use my degree and my love of research and my love of, coming in and trying to improve the well-being of a space in the workplace. I really have always loved that. I have parents that were, my mom worked in a factory and my dad was a truck driver, and we had dinner every night at the table together, and they would talk about different things at their jobs, and they were not treated fairly, and so that has always stuck with me. And so Grit and Flow is an opportunity for me to make workplaces better, so that's one thing. But I work remotely, and that is the biggest reason. I don't have to go into the office and fumble through different social expectations that I just don't know how to rise to, or managing, sensory input, or the number of social interactions I have in a day. And so when work is done now at Grit and Flow, I have all this energy to still live my life after the workday is over. And I really appreciate having the ability to like bring my full self to work. And work is so my environment is so controllable for my sensory input, and it's just really been a way to really bring my skills and abilities to the workplace without it being confused or wrapped up with anything else, like what is going on, what work employees or coworkers might be gossiping, or I'm sure you've talked to people who can relate, like just the hum of electricity is loud. It gets on you after a day and phones ringing. So, control over my environment, doing work that I find purposeful, and being remote are definitely the reasons that I've been so successful with Grit and Flow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still go through burnout regardless if it's remote or going to a work location, but it's so much less, when I have to work remotely. So thankful for it.
Like recover a little bit faster from my if I get overwhelmed, it doesn't stay as long because I'm in an environment that helps me sort of bounce back at the same time.
Now, recently, with a colleague at Grit and Flow, you have created a LinkedIn course called Autism in the Workplace. What do you hope people take away from taking this course?
That autism is different in everyone, and to stop assuming skills and abilities, and to like really for people to understand that it's not us that are preventing our success and inclusion in the workplace, that it really is the systems and procedures and policies and bias that come into play and prevent us from either entering the workforce or having a sustainable position for a long period of time. That's my biggest thing that I hope people take away, is just that, we're all very different. We don't just love tech, we like all kinds of different things, and that businesses are really missing out if they don't have us in their organizations.
In the course, one of the many things you talk about is how critical it is for companies to rewrite job descriptions in recruiting autistic folks for these positions. What are some things that businesses should consider when rewriting these descriptions?
One biggest suggestion is to stop with the bazillion bullet points and really focus on what do you need to actually do to get the job done. And I'm super in favor of write a description of a day in the life in that job. Describe, what am I doing during the day? What can I expect from this position? Even more than what skills I need to bring, because I think for autistic people, having a an idea or a potential picture that they might be able to create in their mind but what the environment might be like gives them the opportunity to make a better choice for themselves before applying for the job. As we know, you go online, you want to apply for a job, you have a resume, but then they ask you to fill out this really long online application, which is just a doubling what's on your resume. So it's all this time that you spend to put, yourself out there. And then it's like chucking a resume into a black hole because you don't know if someone's going to call you back, and it can be soul depleting. So it would be really helpful if people would put more context about the job in the job description so that we can make choices before even applying. What kind of people are we going to have the opportunity to work with? What kind of career progress can we make in your organization? We're like everyone else where we want to know not only what the environment is like and how we might fit in there, but what can we how can we grow in this workspace, and how can this workspace contribute to a fulfilling career for us in the long run.
From what I understand, you have helped organizations to become more inclusive. You have a master's in industrial and organizational psychology, as well as your lived experience. So I'm wondering how important that lived experience has been for you in guiding these organizations to be inclusive when others just have, just kind of that educational experience.
I will say that the educational experience is a huge need. It's very easy for a lot of people in the community to speak up and speak on behalf of themselves and try to build inclusion in the workplace, but it really takes that additional background and understanding of how business psychology works, how leadership needs to be developed. It's nice to bring my lived experience when I'm doing a job analysis because it's easy for me to see or hear or sense different things that I can include in the assessment of the position that other people might not. But it really is the educational background that I have in how to do certain things that comes along with getting an IO degree, which is like mapping out a process to see where it doesn't work is a great skill to learn in education. And my lived experience just makes me that much better at that job. So I think that without my education, I don't think I would be as effective in helping organizations become more inclusive, because I got so much from my education related to organizational development and who do you need to talk to make things happen, and understanding all of the elements that go into change. One of the things that we really focus on is not just getting someone into a position, but how can we change the environment at that workplace to be more neuro inclusive so that when people are there and they're hired, they're supported properly. We all want a job, but more than that, we want to be, supported in the job that we get. And a lot of times that's the piece that businesses aren't connecting. And so that organizational psychology that I have really helps me take my lived experiences and really fine tune things in a way that, again, I wouldn't be able to do without my education.
And how can our listeners learn about you beyond this interview?
They can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to meet new people, though I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Once you become more of a known advocate in the space, you get a lot of emails of people's very difficult lives and experiences. I'm not opposed to hearing those, but I'd rather meet people on like friendship. How can we share what we know to make the world a better place? I really like meeting other people like me. I like learning how people got to where they are despite the challenges that they may have experienced along the way.
Now, from preparing to talk to you and doing research, you strike me as a person that has many interests outside of work that you've pursued. And one of those things is building and construction, as you have volunteered for Habitat for Humanity since 2018. I know as autistic people, we can get very focused on some of our interests. So I'm wondering, from a mental health perspective, how important have these paths or outlets been to you to kind of navigate maybe the stressors of of your work life?
I love volunteering. Like there is a piece of me that just has to give back. Just not happy at the end of the day if I'm not giving back in some regard. Habitat for Humanity. So I build furniture, and I grew up with a dad that built furniture, and it really became a special interest at a young age. And when I was in college and trying to get experience or network with other people, it's really challenging for me to have conversation, small talk, I don't know what to talk about. So using my interests to also volunteer was a really great way for me to do something that was fun and sort of practice some of my interpersonal skills, hone them, have stuff to talk about other than maybe small talk, talking about building. And to build a house for someone, you get to meet the families that you're building the house for. They build right alongside of you. It really gives you a lot back that you don't get in the workplace. You go to work, you make a paycheck, you're kind of working for, quote, the man, if you will. I mean, not in my job is very purposeful, but sometimes people work for big organizations or don't have much purpose. And volunteering really gives me an ability to exercise that big heart muscle that I have inside of me that doesn't always get exercised in the workplace. So it's been great for my mental health and my well-being. And also volunteering has been a great way for me to gain lots of skills. I am interested in a ton of stuff, and I've done a lot of volunteering. Like, I'll volunteer for maybe a music event and get free admission, but then also get to do, like take the tickets or sell merchandise or check bands in and out. And that has really added to my ability to navigate a very social world in a safe way. When you're doing it at work and you mess up, you could get in trouble. But when you're volunteering, it's a much safer place. And I really grew a lot professionally and personally in all of those atmospheres.
And you mentioned volunteering at music events, and from what I understand, you're a board chair for a local a local radio station for well over a decade now. So how did that come about, and what types of things do you do, and what's kind of been that impact on your life?
Oh my goodness. I have not been the board chair for a decade, but I have volunteered there for a
Yeah.
decade. I've been the board chair recently. Some really bizarre leadership changes happened, and I found myself in a position where I was, for all intents and purposes, holding up this nonprofit that had been open for 17 years and thriving and was all of a sudden in a crisis point. And I work well in a crisis for some reason, and was able to use my autistic strengths related to organizing, being able to research things, understand where were the holes, and so built back the admin structure and the paperwork officiality or whatever for the radio station. And it's not just a local radio station, it's community radio and public radio. We have the opportunity to give back to the community in a big way. So one of the things that I had the opportunity to do is sort of augment our mission with some new thoughts. And so now, as the radio station, we give back to four local nonprofits that are in need. And so we help elevate nonprofit missions around us. We share their events. We have live events at our radio station. So it's been really great to be able to have local musicians come to a space. When you love music and you love local music, it's such a gift to have an opportunity to manage a space where local musicians come in and they get to share their music with crowds. I live in an area that is very historically artistic, and over the last 10 to 15 years has become very affluent, and there's not a lot of room left for creative people or people who work on creative salaries. They can't live here anymore. And so the art and culture in our area has become very refined. And if you're a well-established band, you can get a gig in town. But if you're someone new and small, it's harder. So our stage and our space provides that for local musicians, and inclusion has been a big focus for me at the radio station. And it's been really amazing to see how much diversity has grown in our station since we started, from age diversity to different gender and sexual orientation differences. We have different religions now at the radio station, and obviously ethnic differences, which in our area, we are not a very diverse area with that regard. So the fact that we can even have some of that at the radio station is really great. And it's just so wonderful to hear people say that they feel safe there and that they like coming there and that they feel like they have a home and they found a social network for themselves. Because most of the people at the radio station are, I feel like we're all there. We must have some neurodivergence, or maybe undiagnosed for the older people, neurodivergence. And it's kind of a group of outsiders that have come together, and that's like a really special thing when people who don't otherwise feel like they can belong in a space. That's really impacted my life, to see that and to be a part of that, to be a part of our community in that way. I'd say volunteering in any capacity. The board chair is a volunteer position. I would say in any capacity that I can volunteer, or anyone can volunteer. It's just amazing how your life is impacted when you get to know other people and their lives and experiences.
Yeah, definitely a great way to develop community and connection. Nicole, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for making time to talk with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for chatting all things autistic. I loved it. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Nicole for the conversation. To learn more about Nicole, please check out the link in the podcast description of this episode. At Autism Personal Coach, our clients are the experts, our coaches are the guides. The majority of supports for autistics are not helpful. They try to fix us, not support us. That's why many are confused when we say our clients are the experts, experts of their lived experience. Our clients are the experts for what's worked for them. and about the things that they need and want in their lives. Our coaches first listen to our clients and then ask thoughtful questions, offer resources, and strategize with our clients so they can get what they need to thrive. Would you want a guide in your life to coach you to get the things that you desire? If so, then visit autismpersonalcoach.com for more information. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Autism Stories, and if you did, if you could tell a friend, foe, or anyone you know about it so they could have the same enjoyable and educational experience as you when listening to Autism Stories, it would be very much appreciated. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.